This fall, we are doing something a little bit new. We are doing kind of an education, completely education focused um, season and series to help folks move from the idea of wanting to plant for pollinators all the way through to getting a project in the ground by the time the snow falls. So we're starting tonight with site prep. We're really excited to have you all here. Excited to be supported by the Board of Water and Soil Resources that contracts with us, Blue Thumb, to help manage the program. And then oh my gosh, look at that little monarch caterpillar. We are uh, also connected to Metro Blooms. If you hear that name from any of us, that's just the nonprofit that we are kind of an umbrella branch under too. Apologies that I don't have my slides. It makes me ramble a little bit, but I think I'm just gonna stop myself there, hand it over to Dan and the Shoreview Natives crew, and I'm gonna spotlight this amazing video that's happening here too. Take it away.
We'll get started here. My name's Dan Schutte. We've got quite a good number of our team here. We've got about a dozen people that work for us up here at Shoreview Natives. Jen Steenerson is our greenhouse manager. She's fantastic. I'll have her just kind of explain her background in a second. My cousin Darren, who's a UMD professor, and we get to have him for the summer. He's been working with our family for probably a dozen years now on this stuff, so he knows all the tricks. But Jen, you want to just say a little bit about yourself? We'll get started.
So I'm Jen Steenerson, greenhouse manager. This is my third season at Shoreview Natives. I worked for another company for 20 years before that. And so I'm just having a lot of fun growing a lot of native plants. Our retail store over there, we keep it well stocked. And so we continue transplanting through the end of July. So we're continuing to replenish our inventory and also inventory for next season and wholesale orders.
Great. And then behind the camera is my partner, Kristen Pless, UMD professor, and her second job is to do all the stuff that nobody else can do with Shoreview Natives, which turns out to be a lot. So she's great. We'll get started with site prep here. So we're at property where our retail is. We've got a little rental house behind us here. And I think you'll get a little tour of this garden a little bit later here while Darren and I are working on some stuff. But this was planted a year and a week ago with tiny little plugs out of 6-packs. And we'll talk a little bit about the prep we do to get a garden like this in a year. So the same steps that we'll talk about, we did to this entire area. And then there's another garden over there that you might get a look at here that was done the previous year. So this is its second full growing year. But we'll get started a little bit with site prep. So we don't hold a chemical license as a business, so we don't do commercial herbicide applications. So there's other strategies that work well that we found that make us feel good about not using an herbicide, but still really seem to get the job done. And that really boils down. The best thing we found is black plastic. And so there's a few different types of black plastic. This is usually what people think of first when we talk about black plastic. It's like polyfilm. 6 millimeter polyfilm. This is a gigantic sheet of it. What we use this stuff in some cases, we'll talk about when we do, but what we don't like about it is it's really susceptible to like UV damage. Once you poke a hole in it, it seems to worry, the wind seems to worry at it, and those holes just expand, then it kind of defeats the purpose of it. So it does a good job of blocking out light and water 100%, but it just doesn't hold up really from what we've seen up here with the deer and the dogs and the kids and everything. So we tend to use this product instead, which is a woven geotextile, like a class 5 underlayment. So if you're going to put down a gravel road, a lot of times this is what you'd put down as a separation barrier, and it's really heavy duty. And it does let like a little bit of light through. If you hold it up to the sky, you can see pinpricks of light, which is kind of where this comes in some situations. But it holds up to everything. We can tear it up off a site. All this stuff behind me here, it's probably 3,000 square feet. We'll get to reuse all that for another, decade. And it gets smaller and smaller as we cut it up, but it really works well long term. So the combo that we use of those, and I'll just talk about this briefly. A lot of people deal with like creeping bellflowers, snow on the mountain, creeping Charlie, tansy sites are difficult, bird's foot trefoil, like those, some sites that are really infested with those types of plants, you almost need both layers. If you just put down this woven stuff, it seems like it lets those pinpricks of light through, and that's enough to allow some of those really shade tolerant plants to just keep going under there. And so in those cases, we'll put down a layer of this poly film and we'll kind of tack it down. We'll cover up what we want to kill. And then we'll put a geotextile layer over that to protect the poly. And then they both do their jobs together. So that's a strategy. You can buy any big box store, the poly. This other geotextile fabric, that's more of like a construction material. So somebody who supplies like concrete businesses or construction type businesses, like Brock White is a name that comes to mind in Minnesota. But usually you get about 4,000 square feet off of a roll of this woven geotextile fabric. It comes in 12.5 foot widths, 15, 17 and a half, and 20 foot widths. So you can cover an enormous area really quickly with it. And what we suggest to people is that they, find somebody with a trailer, somebody can haul that stuff and split it up between parties. You can split the cost, you can cut it up, you can reuse it. So it's a good product to have on hand because you can reuse it from year to year and pass it around with a group like Wild Ones group or a chapter, whatever sort of group you have. So those are kind of the products we use for the site prep for killing things off. I know there's solarization with clear plastic up north here. We found that black plastic works better than that, just because it seems to heat up the soil better and it just has a better kill. And we talked to other folks that have kind of experienced the same thing. So a few.
Wait, we have.
What's that?
Tell them we have this.
Oh yeah, we do. We have. If you're ever up in the Two Harbors area, we do have this stuff on hand, and that's one thing we've had good success with is just being able to like provide these smaller scale projects, this material, if it's like a DIY thing or somebody wants to do it. So if you're up in this area, we're a source for that too. So we'll cruise this little patch of plastic. This was put down last year and it's dead underneath. We're going to wind up taking up a section up here and show you what's going on. We've got a little loose corner here, I guess. As I peel this back, this was like, I don't know, a meadow. It had a million different types of plants and grasses and forbs in it. And this is what you want it to look like. The stuff is not only died, but it's kind of decomposed already, and there's not much left there. And we'll look at the other spot too. So if you look at the plastic, there's incidentals coming out. We'll kind of show you what to do with those. So we've killed 99.99% of this stuff. We pull the plastic up. A lot of the stuff is going to come up with it, but then we just go after the rest of it with a shovel. And we'll show you how we do that over here.
Tell them why there's logs on all of it.
What's that? Oh
Tell
yeah.
them about the logs.
So you see a bunch of logs out here. Your worst nightmare with these sheet products, pretty much any sheet products, is the wind tearing it up, right? So we pin this stuff down. I didn't mention this with 6-inch sod staples. We got some over here. I'll show them to you. And then because we're wide open here in this meadow, we put this logs on it for ballast, rocks, bricks, logs. It's like another layer of security. And we take the time to do that if we're worried about the wind, because we haven't done that and it blows up and it's kind of a nightmare. It'll blow up in November. The ground's frozen. You can't get it back down, yada, yada, yada. So it's cheap insurance. If you're, in some sort of residential area and you don't get a big 40, 50 mile an hour blast of wind from time to time, you're probably safe just using a lot of staples on the edges of it. So that explains kind of the debris out here. It does serve a purpose. We got a good picture one time. We laid this plastic out. It's really warm. And we came up on it and there were 3 deer laying on top of it. And so that was our joke, is that we deer ballast some sites, but they move around too much.
Gotta train them.
Got to train them. So we've got this little area here. The plastic went down last year, like I said. You can see there's a few incidentals here. Darren, I think it's our time to shine. Yeah. So once this stuff is down, maybe should we go throw the stuff down first so they can see the install first? I think that's what my notes said. We'll come back here and show you what it looks like.
Myself.
Does anybody have any questions? Like while we're here, are there any questions coming through the chat, Alexandra?
We don't have anything in the chat just yet.
Well, I was an elementary school people, so we're fine getting interrupted with questions, or people can shout out what's on their mind, or if I miss something or say something somebody wants a follow up, let me know.
Yeah, encourage folks to jump in if you have thoughts or questions.
Ooh, I think we're gonna go over this area. Yeah.
This way.
Yeah. So site prep, you can walk into a lot of different areas. We've done areas, Kristen, if you pan the camera over here, like some people have these marginal areas that they want to turn into a pollinator garden. Progressively less difficult, like starting with that, going down to turf grass. You can think of a spectrum of things that you have to do to prep a site. But the punchline is kind of the same on all of them. You need to get what's there out of there, and you want things as tight to the ground as possible. So we've got a kind of a mediocre difficulty area back here. It's a meadow. Um, we're just going to extend this plastic that you see. Yeah, there's Timothy grass in there. There's a million things in there. Bird's foot trefoil. Fire up the machine here. Maybe I wouldn't show them, but the different ways you can do this. So our first goal is to get this stuff down tight to the ground. And if you're a low tech kind of gardener, something like this works. It just takes a little more time, right? So we're just going to snip this stuff off. And then we're just going to get it out of there, rake it out of there. And we're going to get that down tight to the ground. So that's one way to do it. And that's good. And I think what that does is the closer you get that black plastic, we've crawled under this black plastic on hot, sunny days, and it is extremely hot under there. And the closer you are to the plastic, the more it transfers the heat directly into it. So if we can get the plastic almost tight down to this ground, it just pushes that heat down there and it kills our stuff a lot quicker. So you'd want to
Hey,
clear the
Dan,
air.
can we stop you there for just a second?
Yeah.
There's a question that I think might be relevant right now
Yeah.
too. Deborah had asked, are newspaper and cardboard layers a lot less effective for killing unwanted growth? And I think you're getting at that with the heat.
Yeah, I think so. I think they are less effective for killing them. We've seen that used effectively, like after the site has been killed. We've seen it used as more of like a weed suppression layer. So you'd kill it first with black plastic. There's so many seams on the cardboard and it breaks down, kind of that just, newspaper even more so. It just seems like it's not quite as effective as other like larger contiguous black plastic options. So for site prep, I feel like something like this is better. And then for weed suppression, the cardboard and newspaper, I've seen that you worked well if you're putting like wood mulch on top of it and you may double layer it or make sure your seams are overlapped.
To prevent things from blowing in.
Yeah, to prevent things from blowing. Yeah,
Like
blowing out.
Yeah.
Seeding in. Yeah.
Yeah, appreciate
So,
that.
oh yeah, sure. So the other, the step up in site prep would be if you're on turf grass, just run your lawnmower real low. Turf grass is easy; it dies quickly and it's easy to get prepped. A weed whipper on stuff like this would be good. I've got a little push behind weed whipper here that I'm actually going to use for a second, and we'll just get this site tight to the ground. You can take one last look at it. I think Jen and Kristen are going to go over to the garden. Jen's one of the best botanists in Minnesota, and she's one of the best growers in Minnesota. These native plants, it's kind of a niche skill set. Not many people do it like her. So I think we'll just take like 3 or 5 minutes. We'll cut this stuff down, and you can go check out the garden. And Jen can talk a little bit about this weed suppression mat that we use. And then when you guys hear the thing go off, you can come back. We'll be ready. So we'll be back in a second.
The lawnmower is behind the sauna if you need it.
Oh yeah, we'll be good with this.
Okay.
Okay, watch your eyes, Steve.
We've got another question in the chat. And Jen, I don't know if you want to answer this one, but will the black plastic kill weed seeds, especially for like aggressive things like canary reedgrass, nettle, and thistle?
Did you hear that, Jen? No. Will the black plastic kill the seeds for especially aggressive things like thistle and some of those other aggressive things?
It's not going to kill all the seeds, but it is going to kill some of it. So it's going to help. And then that also is why after we kill everything on the site, we pull the plastic up, we put compost down, then we put some form of weed suppression mat down. And if anybody heard, unfortunately, the manufacturer burnt down, so we weren't able to get this product anymore. So we've been trialing a couple different things. And I think Dan will probably be showing you the new maize weed suppression mat that we have. So I'll just kind of show you a little bit more of the garden and maybe kind of how we lay out things. So along the edges, we like to put short species. So when, like in our retail location, if you come shop here, you'll see that we have the layout of the plants. So when you're shopping, there's like the short zone, the medium zone, the tall zone, and then we have wet zone, colonizers, and shade. But we've found that the easiest way to help people figure out their layout is just to keep it simple. And then you can add more complexity to it as you get used to the process. So let's go look in the front of the house where there's some shorter stuff. So along this edge here, you'll see the lupin. That's the native lupin. And then there's prairie smoke, the tradescantia, which is the longback spiderwort. We have some aromatic asters in there, pearly everlasting, and mountain mint. And so some of these plants, like pearly everlasting and mountain mint, I would consider to be medium height plants. And so those can be used kind of along the edge or the second tier. And then we kind of get into the medium tier plants. So we have prairie coreopsis, wild quinine. We have, let's see, some, who else do we got in here?
Oh, those.
Oh yeah, the penstemons. Yes, the penstemons are doing.
I'm going to show you the quinine first. I can get it to focus.
Can you hear me?
I think I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
So it sounds like the brush cutter is done. But basically my point would be like, keep it simple when you're designing your layout. Short along the edge, medium, and then tall. And you don't always have to use all of those height zones. You can keep things small and medium if you just want things to stay shorter, or even in urban residential properties, we'll stick to more of the short species and add in a few of the medium height species. So let's take the shortcut around and check out what's going on with the brush cutting. We have a nice swale here, a little rain garden swale. You can see how much rain we got. There's iris, great blue lobelia. We have some bee balm and mountain mint, a bunch of sedges, and we use sedges as a matrix to fill in the gaps. We like to plant our projects really close so everything fills in right away, so you're not having to compete with space for the weeds.
We've got one more question in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
What's the minimum time needed to get a good kill under the plastic?
The stuff he was showing you earlier, we covered last year in July, and now it's ready to plant anytime. Typically, I think they try to leave it for a full year. And with some of the more difficult species, like the purple bellflowers and quackgrass and things like that, sometimes they'll leave it from the beginning of the season through, like, how long do you leave it for, like, those difficult?
2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
3 years.
Yeah. Whereas a south facing slope.
Oh,
Dry.
dry south facing slope with turf grass. I mean, on 1 August we did it where it was like a week-long 90-degree stretch, and it was done after a week. I mean, you couldn't find a living thing under there.
If they're in Minneapolis or further south, it's hotter than here.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of installations, and people, I used to try to give a date, and then we'd have a really cold late spring, and all of a sudden, stuff's just not dead. So I hesitate to even say a date. It's just like it's dead. It's ready when it's dead underneath. And it's worth the patience. You're not blasting a chemical around the world, and it's good conversation piece, to tell people about what you're doing. So yeah. Well, we cut this stuff down while you're gone. That's what I mean about getting it tight. I mean, we're not doing a lot. We're killing all this stuff, right? But you're just getting it, a really tight lawn mow on turf grass. That weed whipper took it down pretty tight. And so that way, when you see us put down this plastic, you'll see that we get it really close to the ground here. So that's what it looks like.
Oh, I don't know how to get out of this.
And then Darren, I'm going to bring it my way a little bit.
I was afraid of doing.
So this kind of goes for, any, like I said, these things can be 20 feet wide and you can do a 300-foot strip of it. And we kind of do the same thing either way. We try not to cut it because we use this stuff. So a lot of times we just fold things under like that. I needed to meet this edge here. So I fold that under. And the first thing I'm going to do is get one of my corners in. So I'm going to take this. Oh, the other thing, and this goes like if you have an existing garden or something, if you're trying to kill up to something, I cleaned all these rocks off here because I want to get like a 2-inch overlap here. I don't want to have a big seam here or I just want to be thorough with cleaning that out and getting an overlap. So I'll do a little last bit of that. And then I'm going to take this corner, and Darren's down there on the other side. So in a second, I've got that corner down really solid now, and I could even put another one in here. But what I'm trying to do is get this really solid and give Darren a bunch of back pressure that he can pull against that way because he's going to try to tighten that up really tight. And that gets all the stretch. This stuff stretches both ways because it's woven like this. So you stretch it really far that way. Do that one first, and then we're going to stretch it that way, and we're trying to get as tight as possible. So he's got those two in there. And then each one of these staples.
Wait, someone asked, you asked the question, what are you using?
What are you using for your staples?
16-ounce rubber mallet, 16-ounce rubber mallet, and then 6-inch U-shaped sod staples. You get these at the same place you get this plastic, like big box construction supply stuff. In all honesty, I'm a penny pincher. You can get a box of these things for like $50, 1,000 staples for $50. And if you go to some other place to get like a package of 20, it's like 20 times more expensive. It's ridiculous. So again, splitting it between a group is a really good way to save money on this. So Darren stretched me that way. And then I'm doing these. I want to get one of these in like every 18 inches. So I'm getting that down here. And I'm going to put this in. You're going to bend a few staples. Try another spot. So I'm putting that down. And then I'm getting this next one down. So each one of those, if I really pound it into the earth, it's going to stretch that plastic out even more. And this is where I think this thoroughness and just the consistency of these staples is really what is going to make your prep really successful, is making sure you do this right. So, we got every 18 inches there. And then Darren and I will go to the other side.
I can't read the questions and see the camera at the same time, so you
Yep.
guys have to read the questions.
Yep, we'll read them out. We were just
Okay.
waiting for a better moment to maybe read it.
Okay, great.
Don't worry about it.
So I'm going to stretch that really tight there again. You can give yourself, Darren and I did probably 16 feet stretch there. I think if we were going 150 feet with this length, I think you would pin the corner down and then have somebody go 20 or 30 feet, stretch it really hard that way, and then do that section. And then go 20 and just kind of leapfrog down with that big stretch in between. But we got this pretty solid here now. And then Darren and I will pull this back. And then we got the frayed edge down here. One of these sides of the factory, we must have cut it, ripped it the long way. And so with this frayed edge here, we just tuck that under. I've heard that's good practice anyway, because weeds that are growing up that hit the plastic, they go over and they get caught in that little fold. So just an inch or two of that under. Try to get all those frays under, and then we'll pull real hard again. Put one in here. And then on this side too, we're just going to fold this under, and we'll pin this down. And then we'll just do our little pull and stretch thing again, all the way down. So now I'll go down to this edge and I'll pull against that.
You can ask the questions now while they
Yeah.
staple that.
So the first one is while the tarp is on the ground, do you see an increase in weeds like burdock or other taproot weeds popping up in the surrounding areas, like around the tarp?
No.
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 No. No. Um,
Okay.
Another thing you could mention is just like folding excess.
Oh, yeah.
here.
Yeah. So you might have seen over on this side, this was just wider. The geometry just pushed me out into this stuff here. And so again, and for the sake of not cutting it and being able to reuse a big piece, we just fold it under. I mean, you can fold under as much as you want, and that works just great. And then you've got double layers under there that might actually reduce some of that pinprick light stuff I was talking about when we started. So that's kind of the process. You can see, Kristen, if you get like, you see that slack right here? So that's that stretch. If you look at Darren's end, he doesn't have that bulge at all. I've got the bulge here. But if I pull this real tight like that and then put this down, that bulge comes out and it's tight down to the ground again. There's a little
Um,
bulge there, but when I pull this, that's going to go away because that plastic's going to stretch that direction.
and then somebody asked, like, how do you do this when you're working on like a city boulevard in front of a house with sidewalk and street curb on either side, or when you're working around like a mature tree, when you have those.
We got an example. That's where we're headed next. We got an example. Yeah,
These people
you'll
are.
see in just a second here.
And someone asked about goutweed or snow on the mountain.
Yeah, goutweed, snow on the mountain. I'll get snow on the mountain in just a second. So now we've got this thing stretched. It's really tight. We can get it tighter yet if we put some in the middle and just like quilt it so it dimples the plastic a little bit. Like this. Got a little gap here. There it is. It's really funny. We talk about this all the time on residential sites is that we'll do a small little area like this and it takes, I mean, we could have done area 10 times this size in about the same time just because that economy of scale and just rolling it out. But it's a little fussier around like buildings and little defined areas. There's just more edges and folding and fussiness to deal with. So we'll take this with us. Yeah. Thanks. So that curb question's a good one. Believe this. Yeah, we deal with like sidewalks, curbs, sidewalks, driveways where there's edges quite a bit. And it is like, that's definitely a weak point in the prep process. Those edges are always the weak point as far as killing off what's there. So we'll show you an example over here of what that looks like. Okay. So we're back to this corner here, kind of where we started. Got the ballast, the debris around. This plastic's been down for a long time. So here's some of this incidentals that we were talking about. That's how we refer to just these sporadic little things that find holes in the plastic. So we'll kind of move this stuff off the site and we'll pull this plastic back. And underneath here is a sidewalk. And the sidewalk, the boulevard, we kind of treat all this in the same way. So if we get this corner up, I think we can show you kind of what that looks like. Ooh, she's dead under here. What else are we forgetting, Jen?
You're hitting all marks.
We're hitting the marks?
Yeah. I'll chime in if I think of it.
Some of the weeds that you saw on the mat are where like dust and dirt and things have just blown onto the fabric. And so they'll come right up with the fabric sometimes.
It's magical.
But along the foundation or the edge of the sidewalk, these things happen.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So these can be, varying degrees of frustration. This looks like probably some sort of quack. And so we do our due diligence. Darren's a pro at this, but we go out and then we just loosen it up, and then we chase all these little roots down so we can get a pretty complete kill on it. So, we live in clay up here, but this is everything now. It's stretched out. That's why I started out on this side. There's nothing else living beyond this thread of root. And so if I'm judicious about chasing that back, then I'm going to get all of this out of here. And it really works. It just kind of takes the time doing it right. You can get these things growing into concrete or asphalt. That's always a bugger if it's like kind of embedded in there. That's a tough one. That's kind of like you got to monitor it after that. Look at this. So it's incredible. Like this, there's the mothership that was pumping the juice all the way out here. And so if we see something like that, we adjust our radius a little bit. And we go down and we're going to try to get that one up too. And out of there. There was another one coming. So we just get all this stuff out is kind of the move here. So Darren and I, we'll take a couple minutes. We'll get this out. Oh, as long as we're here now, then we'll do this while you're gone too. Oops. So these sidewalks, back to the sidewalk and boulevard question. Most of the sidewalks that we come to, you can see this berm here, right here. That was like turf grass, that it kind of spread over the sidewalk. So we always try to get that back to the edge. So sometimes you gain a fair bit of sidewalk back, but so we can try to seal this up as good as we can, whether we're putting down plastic. We were covering this whole thing, so we didn't worry about it pre-plastic, but if we were just doing this area in plastic, we would have done this beforehand, kind of chipped this back, thrown it back up there. And then we put our staples as tight to that as we can. And depending on what the snow removal is or what people are doing on that sidewalk, sometimes we'll leave like a little ½ inch or an inch of plastic over here just to seal that up as good as we can. And you're still going to come back and find stuff like this, that you have to pop out and stuff like all the green you see out on the plastic. It's just the way of it. But being thorough, it's really important to be thorough when you're getting that stuff out. So that's what we're doing here. That goes back to that boulevard sidewalk question, though. Clean it off, make sure you find the edge of the boulevard or the concrete, and then try to get your plastic up as tight or maybe even a little overlapped on that, I think is the punchline for that. So Darren and I will clean this little section up here, and then we'll talk about kind of the next steps, the compost and the working up of the space.
I'll talk. Will you pull that ripped out? Okay, get a good little. I just wanted them to see that you're trying to get all of those risks out of there, and they run on the foundation.
Yeah, I mean, this is crabgrass. This is the worst of the worst. Everybody, you know it.
Isn't it quack?
Quack. I'm sorry, not crab. Some trash, historical artifacts.
Never know what you're gonna find.
But yeah, it's worth trying to get them all out, shake them off, and then they go out there to die.
I thought we could take a look at some of the spots where maybe we have holes, and I'll talk about like gaps in the planting, like the second year. So because we have this weed suppressant mat down, there are a few species that are short-lived, like black-eyed Susans, that need to keep reseeding themselves to keep coming up. We do see them pop up in random little spots, like you'll see them in the cracks in the sidewalks or like in little spots where there might be dirt. But right here, you'll see where there was black-eyed Susan that didn't come up. So we treat this as an opportunity. So you can just put a new plant in here and, kind of look at the existing landscape and what you have. And, we were thinking of maybe putting something that would be shorter, like the lupin or the spiderwort. I think this year we're really big fans of the spiderwort. So I think, just finding those holes, knowing that's the reality of, gardening, is that things aren't constant and that it's continuing to change and evolve. And so you kind of are part of that process and just look at these different situations as opportunities to maybe try out a new plant, or just just figure it out as you go a little bit and don't feel like you need to be so set on, a specific layout since things will evolve over time. And then, one other thing that I'll just mention now where we're at is that we have opened the holes here too. So we continue to open these holes and give the plants more room to grow. And you can keep doing that, for the next few years. Open it up as much as you want. You can completely remove it. You could add a little bit of wood chips if you want. The more of the mat you get off, the more the plants will spread, obviously. And it'll also give an opportunity for those species that need to reseed themselves to be able to, move around, fill in the spaces. Which another reminder why we plant so densely is, you can see in some of these areas, you can't even see the matting anymore. So it does a really good job of shading out the space and keeping weeds at bay. So I don't know if anybody has questions kind of about that part of the process, because that wasn't really what we were here to talk about, but I thought I'd kind of throw it into the mix. I think we can go back and see what they're up to over here now.
I love the bonus content, Jen. Thank you. One question that did come up that maybe is more related to this is what do you recommend when you're doing a barrier between your planting and another portion? Like if you're keeping lawn, what do you have as that barrier between the pollinator planting and your lawn?
Yeah, edging. I prefer to use metal edging. Otherwise, a heavy quality edging, something that's not cheap and gonna break or be too flimsy. We we don't like to use plastic a whole lot, but I would say that I use the plastic that's the heavy construction grade edging, and it lasts a lifetime. So and I've used the metal edging. I think the main thing to keep in mind when you're putting that edging is to get down deep enough, get your edging in nice and straight, so that the top of it has about an inch, but the rest of it goes straight down. So when you're digging your edging in, you want to make a trench that has a wall basically that's completely vertical. So then you can push your edging up against that and then tack it in there. And then you want to be really careful about making sure when you're piecing the edging together that you overlap it somehow, or some of the edging is constructed so it'll automatically overlap, but if the plastic edging has that big bead on the top, I'll cut a little section out of the edging so that when I put them together they overlap like that. Because any little hole that you have, turf grass is just going to find a way in. So yeah, that's kind of the easiest way to do it. If you just put field stones along the edge, you'll still have grass creeping through that too. So
I think that there's different depths of plastic edging you can get to. And if you're dealing with some of the more aggressive things like quack grass, the deeper that edging is, the better.
Agreed. Yeah, for sure. All right. Looks like they got this
Got her.
kind of cleaned up a little.
Got her cleaned up.
But Dan got distracted by a weed.
Oh, we got her cleaned up here. Cleaned off the edge. I mean, it's dirty under that plastic. The water had gone through and it just mobilized some of this clay we have up here, which mobilized really easily. So we've got this here. Our compost is great. I used to not think compost was necessary because they're native plants and they're used to the soil. And then the first site we put compost on, we never looked back. And our rate is a yard per 500 square feet. So that might be a good one to write down. I think you can, that's about an inch of compost over the entire area. So we're calibrated pretty good to just dump things out. And then, so this is what we do on any site. We rip the plastic up, it's dead. We clean the edges, we compost it. Darren's raking it out. And then we generally run a tiller. It seemed like quite a bit for this little webinar to get the tiller out here. And this is a tight space. Tillers are dangerous. They're big machines. They're so powerful. But on something like this, we just weeded here. So we loosened up the soil. And then just a good old fashioned shovel till. Darren can show how you rake it. I mean, we just do this, and just kind of rough up the soil a little. Mix in that compost a little bit. And then Darren will probably come back and rake me flat here. Something like this. This site kind of roughed up a little. You just want to loosen up that top layer of soil, especially in like clay like this. It's just heavy, it's compacted, and this just lets the roots blast out a little quicker on these little plantings. And if we didn't do this, you just top dress the area, and that's good, but it's worth getting the compost on the site somehow, either with the top dressing or being able to till it in the top 3 or 4 inches. Not a living root in sight, which is great. Left you a chunky one. So Darren's just kind of smoothing this down. We're just kind of kicking this down smooth. If you actually do till it up, it usually kind of breaks up the soil into a little more fine pieces. Darren's back to the rake though.
It's 6:45, just so you know the time.
Oh yeah.
Perfect.
Perfect.
We're getting towards the end here.
And then we got a few options. We're big fans of weed suppression. I mean, that's usually the problem with these native gardens is this, that you get weeds in them and then they take over if you don't manage them. So we like to mitigate, we like to get ahead of the weeds. And so we've used weed suppressant matting systems. So they're sheet products. This is kind of the original one we used. It was a wood paper fiber mix, paper pulp, wood pulp mix, polymer in it. It's about quarter of an inch thick, and it persists a long time. That's what this whole site is done with. We put this down first and we planted through it. So that's about a year old on site. And this wasn't the perfect product, but we've used it for almost 10 years. And then the factory that makes it burnt down, we lost our supply. So that pivoted us to trying other products.
That's our very last roll.
Yes.
One more?
One more.
Oh, in the greenhouse.
This is a paper-based product. It's like a glorified heavy-duty paper bag is what it feels like. We used this on some sites last year, and it seems like it broke down too fast, to be honest. The sites, it broke down weed seeds from the seed bank came up through the cracks, and we spent too much time weeding sites that we use this on. So I think this is going out of our rotation. And
which one was the one, Jen, that you had showed in the garden that had been used over on the front of the house?
That was the aspen wood shavings, and there's literally nowhere in the country that fabricates that anymore.
We are trying to find someone to
we're trying to
fabricate
find
it
somebody to
for us.
fabricate it.
It is like my
but a little different,
side project.
It's a little thick and it wasn't perfect. This stuff is made out of cornstarch. Looks everything like the cheap plastic stuff that you use. Jen's having a hard time ripping it. We started using this spring, and I think we like it. It seems heavy duty. It takes foot traffic. It doesn't get holes in it very easily, and they say it's going to last for like 4 years on a site, which is better than like 8 years. So the fourth option that we could have here is a pile of wood chips. That's like, traditional gardening, you put the wood chips down. From what we've seen, if you're not on top of the weeds, this is just having a leg up on the weeding process. So we put something down. If you don't like the aesthetic of this, you can put wood chips over it. You don't need 3 inches because this is functionally doing the job of the wood chips. So just like an aesthetic covering of a sprinkle or an inch or whatever. And that also helps hold it down. It's floppy. We talked about the wind. So we use a lot of staples on this. We staple it just the way we did that plastic, although it doesn't have that stretch to it. And so this one's more laying it out, making sure it's snug, and then putting staples on the edges of it and then in the middle of it as well to hold it down. And then planting through this, you're popping a hole in it with a trowel, you're jabbing it, which puts a hole, and you peel it back a little bit with your fingers. So you've got a nice little hole about that big. and then you just wedge under there, make yourself a little wedge of space, and you pop your plug in there, and you push down on the wedge, and then you're planted up. So
And
that's
what's
kind of
this product called, Dan? That was a question that came through
the
the chat.
PLA. It's a maize mulch is what they call it. We sell it. We source it out of Colorado. We use a lot of it. We'll use acres this summer of this product, and I think we're pretty happy with it.
We have about 5 minutes. We should.
So, I mean, that's, we could talk about this for a few hours. I think we are winding down on time though. So I guess open it up to Q&A.
Lay this out. And
Oh, we can
staple it
show.
in.
Sure, fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While they're stapling that, you guys can ask questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a couple that we didn't get to that I'd love to go back to. So in terms of using the black plastic, laying it out to kill stuff, can you do that with weeds like Japanese knotweed, or do you find that it just runs underground until it gets free?
Dan, can you use the black plastic with Japanese knotweed?
5 years.
7 years.
Yeah.
5 to 7 years.
I mean, we're just guessing.
Will it run to the edges?
I'm sure it will.
Yeah.
Yes.
They just did it runs 20 feet outside. It runs 20 feet. You can run 20 feet from the base of the outermost plant. Just talk to somebody about that.
I think one of my things that I've been doing in situations like that with like snow on the mountain, creeping bellflower, Japanese knotweed is it's not necessarily for large spaces, but for smaller spaces is to put something like this weed suppression down and then put a raised bed in, and just have that barrier, put the native plants in some sort of raised bed so that, you're not dealing with the weed issue and as much prep as you can do on the site, you're still going to have incidentals coming up, so you'll want to stay on your toes and make sure that you keep digging those out as they come up. But I've found that gardening in containers is really successful, and like I've even planted first year seedlings into raised beds, let them grow a season, pop them out, divide them, put them in other areas, so raised beds are kind of a nice tool to have to use for that. So what are we?
So we're doing the same thing. Darren and I aren't stretching against each other. We're doing it we're doing a little snug up as we're putting this down.
And show your sidewalk edge.
Yeah, here's the sidewalk edge right here. I mean, I've kind of pushed this back, and we're just going to put it so it covers up the edge. I don't want to see the edge. And then sometimes there's a bulge underneath these sidewalks where it went under the form. So there's like a little apron of concrete under there. So you can kind of hedge your bets and go at a little bit of an angle there. And then that's going to snug it. So there's my edge. I got about like a 1/4 inch overlap. And I'm not thinking through that with every staple. You get a feel for it and you just make sure that you're in that ballpark and then just keep putting in staples.
Angling the staple away from the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And then Dan had mentioned too about like snow removal and things like that. So you'll want to keep that in mind.
Salt.
Yeah, salt too. So I think, if it's your own sidewalk, just be careful when you're shoveling and mark the sidewalk so you're not catching the edge of your
With some
fabric.
flags.
What's that?
Mark it with some flags.
Yep,
in
you
the
can
fall.
mark your edges with some flags for the winter so you're not taking the edge of your weed barrier up at all.
I think I just folded it all under.
Courtney asked if she has a plant that she wants to keep, but it's in an area that she's going to try and prep. Can she cut a hole in the plastic and let it continue to grow through the plastic kill zone?
Yeah, you can. We do that on some sites. If we're really on top of it, we can cover a site with plastic. And then sometimes we put shrubs and trees through that just to get a jump on their growth. And then we just monitor the base of those really closely for weed intrusion, because that's the weak point then once you cut that hole in the plastic. But, if you got a tree or shrub in there, you're not confused about the weeds, and you just maintain that. Hand weed them out of there. Same thing would go for that plant, do the math or kind of lay it out and figure out where you need to cut that hole. The other option, depending on the size of the plant and what it is just to pop it out and put it in a holding pattern in a pot somewhere, like a gallon or a 5-gallon pot, depending on how big it is. We do that for clients a lot. If they've got, grandpa's peony, we pop it out, we put it in a pot, and then they take care of it, and we'll plant it again for them.
What would you do on this edge by the building?
Edge by the building. I mean, we did. You saw us do that thorough job. So, the clay is a little lumpy. I think we just get it up as tight as we can there. And then we just hammer this down. Kristen, can you get this angle here? It's a good, so down the edge of the building there, just to show what happens on these seams. So you can see there's weeds in there. I mean, that's a casual day of weeding. You know that everything in here is stuff you don't want.
Those are all baby plants.
Some of them are baby plants. I'm pulling out a buckthorn right now. You just monitor the edges. It's just, again, kind of that same, your edges are going to be your weak point. So you could come along here and just pull all these out. And the cool thing is, like Kristen just mentioned, here's a Maximilian sunflower. Here's another one. These are all weeds. There's a hyssop back here behind me. Eventually, if you stay on top of the weeds, all you're going to see in there is your desirable plants, and that's what you want. So after those established, we just leave those there and let them go. So,
And they should be shaded out by these
Yeah.
plants too this year.
I mean, you saw the weeds there, but yeah, to her point, there's so little light back there that those aren't going to become monster weeds just because the native plants are suppressing them. Yeah. Look at that.
Team shot.
You want to put some in the middle?
Team shot. Huh? Oh, yeah, you could
Maybe
quilt
in
it.
the middle?
Yeah, I think the one thing we've seen about this product, Darren, correct me if I'm wrong, but like a pussy toes or a prairie alum root, something with a really flat, short, there's a little loft to this depending on the topography underneath and how smooth you got it. So if we put a pussy toe something right here, this might loft up and our little flap that we cut to plant that might flop out and it could suppress that. So we just over staple it probably because it's easy. Or if you're planting really tall plugs, you're not gonna have to worry about that. But that's the one thing we've seen is just a little too much.
Try a little wood mulch.
Well, yeah, a little wood mulch. That's the other thing we've talked about on sites. Thank you. Is like, something like this. Most people would just wood mulch it right now, and that would weight the rest of these little inconsistencies down.
It's a little delicate though.
At retail last weekend, I had some people talking with me about the order of doing this, and they were going to plant and then put wood mulch around their tiny baby plants. And we talked about how it's a lot easier to put the wood mulch down first and then push it to the side, plant your plant, and just gently scooch it back than to try to carefully put mulch around all your
Because
plants.
we're planting so close
Yeah.
together. If you
And
were
they're
doing,
so little.
spacing, but we're planting so close together.
Yeah. And our rule of thumb, so like for figuring plants, a lot of times, like how many plants do I need to cover this space? We do 1 plant per square foot. So if you got 30 square feet here, we'd want 30 plants in this space. And we plant dense. And if you can afford 60 plants, I mean, the denser your plants are in there, the quicker it's going to fill up and the less weeds are going to be there because the space is taken up.
But you can kind of see the spacing.
See the spacing? This might even be a little wider.
Yeah.
Some,
And if you think about like how the plants were growing in the cracks, I mean, they're right up next to each other. So they're wanting to fill in the space. So there's nothing saying that you can't put plants, 6 inches apart.
Yeah.
It just fills in so much faster. It's so much more gratifying. Like for the second year to be able to have something that looks like this, that looks like a mature planting.
Yeah.
I think it's worth that extra expense. Just then you don't have to be waiting around and spending as much time weeding and all those things. So
I would agree. And some of the big people in the perennial landscape, Piet Udolph, I think a lot of people use gallon pots, to that end, they use gallon pots to like put them a foot apart and then everything is just and you just have an instant garden. The economical side of me, these perennials, once like these are 1 year old, these are all gallon pot plus size right now. So we turned a plant that was a $2 plant in 1 year. If you were going to buy them, it'd be
$20.
25 bucks a piece to plant something like this, which, that's a 10-fold budget on the project. So using small plants, doing it right, suppressing the weeds, you really get ahead economically on these projects.
There's a question, and then I think we're all
Question.
Oh, I think we got that last question.
Oh, great.
David had asked again where you find those organic weed barriers. I know you guys mentioned you have them. And
Yeah.
We're right at 7. This has been so much fun. So
Oh,
fun
Good.
to
We've
do
had
a
a
live
blast.
We've had a
stream.
blast.
This is
Great.
a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you all so much. This has been such great information. I just like everybody's saying thank you. You're getting applause.
Oh,
Absolutely
thanks.
awesome.
Great.
Thank us.
Yeah, if
Yeah.
you want to see this in action, this house is Airbnb cottage, so you can come and
Shameless.
stay and check it all out in person.
the
No, we have
sauna,
people that
yeah.
are coming and shopping and wandering the gardens. So
I mean, and our shtick is we like educate. You know, we have intentions of building a workshop space and running seasonally appropriate workshops where you can stay here on site and do seed collection for 2 or 3 days. So when you leave, you will know exactly how to do these steps of the process. I've got an education background. Jen's a fantastic educator. Kristen is a trained professor. So is Darren. It's like the education is where we really get charge out of this stuff. So we're easy to find. We're always a phone call away. We talk about this stuff all day. It's great.
Yes, it's a great resource to have you guys here in the state. So glad we've got you.
Awesome.
I'm just going to say thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight. Watch your emails. We've got another webinar coming up on July 8th. Megan, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep.
Lunchtime webinar, that one. Again, it'll be recorded just like this one was, so we can share it out if you miss it. But that one's gardening for the birds, and we'll learn all about how these plants also support our native birds as well. So thanks, everybody. Have a great evening.
bye.
High fives. Woo!
Yeah.
Woo! Nice job. Thanks.
Take care, team.
All right.